The latest read on consumer confidence is just out, and the Conference Board says it moved lower in July. Bart Van Aert, chief economist at the Conference Board, is here to talk about it. Bart, what drove consumer confidence down in July?
Well, it is quite interesting. Over the past few months, we had seen that the consumers' assessment of the present situation wasn't great, but that they were thinking that things will be getting better in the future. What we're seeing this month is that the consumers somewhat improved on their assessment of the current situation, but they really became more negative about the future. And what's particularly important here is the outlook for employment and the outlook for business conditions. Although we still have more positive consumers than negative consumers, that number has come down quite significantly. And then in addition to that, for months we had seen that the consumers' assessment of their own income situation would be very weak, and that stayed like it is. So the outlook for consumers has just become much more negative now.
Bart, talk to me about where you're seeing pessimism rise, because as I look at your latest index, you saw large declines, particularly in Florida, Texas, California. All those states have rising cases of coronavirus. Are you seeing a direct correlation there between the number of virus cases and how optimistic consumers are?
Yeah, you're exactly right. We're seeing now the worsening really happening in California, Texas, Florida, and Michigan. In contrast, New York, for example, we actually see that, present situation assessment improved, but even the expectations somewhat improved for consumers there. So, yeah, I think at this time there is a clear correlation between the resurgence of cases. And the reason why this is also very important is that particularly Texas and Florida were very optimistic. They had very optimistic consumers for a very long period of time. And they now really dropped quite significantly. In Texas, actually, consumer confidence is now lower than the national average, which is quite unique compared to the history of Texas optimism with regard to consumption.
Bart, what's the read through here to consumer spending? Anything off of this report suggests spending is about to fall off a cliff?
Well, fall off the cliff perhaps is pushing it a little bit too far. But as I mentioned, the income situation, consumers throughout this crisis have seen that their income is not going to improve. We have about as many consumers who think it's getting better versus consumers that think it's getting worse. That's a really low number. That actually has even worsened a little bit in July. So, yeah, we do actually expect that in the second half of the year, consumption will not help us in this kind of recovery. As a matter of fact, when we look at our own forecast, we are actually concerned that in the fourth quarter, we may actually even see a little bit of a contraction in the economy. And that would actually be driven, you could call it kind of a double dip, if you like. And that will be very much driven by the weakness of consumer spending.
Bart, let's get positive here for a moment. Where are consumers most optimistic, or perhaps I should say least pessimistic?
Yeah, I think it's probably the best way to say least pessimistic. This is not a great place that we're in right now. I'd say particular when it comes to the assessment of the employment situation. I think consumers are still hoping that the job situation will improve in the second half of the year. They're not very optimistic, but that's what they're hoping for. I think this whole issue of the unemployment benefit is going to play a little bit into this as well, because consumers may understand that it may be a while before they're going to get their jobs back, and in the meantime they would be covered by these extended unemployment benefits. If that's not going to happen, then I think that would be another factor playing into this. So, to be honest, Alexis, it's a little hard to really find a lot of positive news in here. I think we have to get through this current resurgence of new cases and hope that the situation comes under control. Then we can get actually expectations to come back pretty quickly. Because remember that in the last 2-3 months before this resurgence happened, we actually saw expectations improve. So there was really some hope that the consumer would pick up, but it's not the situation at the moment.
Bart, are we just looking at potentially several months of just underwhelming reads on consumer confidence? And my thinking is that the unemployment top up, if that goes down to $200 or $300, like some of the legislation that we're seeing out there right now, that's a big dent to many, many unemployed households.
Yes, it has helped a lot of households to basically cover the current situation. And I think if this unemployment benefit really comes down by that amount, the two effects. One is that some households will be hurt quite severely directly, but it also is another factor that is playing into the confidence of consumers to realize this is going to be a long crisis and we're not able to cover this financially. So even households that are not being impacted by this, that could still be impacted in a way that it doesn't make them feel confident that things will get better anytime soon.